Mm. Right. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Louis, and I'm going to start us off just so how long have you been coaching at Graham College?
Yeah, good morning, Louis, and I think it's Renzi and Steve. I've been coaching rugby at Graeme College. I coached 2 years, 2010 and 2011, when I was actually still a student. So I worked part-time at the school, did a bit of coaching mainly in the junior school, and then I came back as a full-time teacher in 2014. I was the assistant coach for the first team, and
Mhm.
then I took over as head coach in 2015, and I've been the head coach since then.
Okay. All
Wow.
right. Steve?
How many open teams do you have at Graeme College?
Yeah, so we hope to try get 5 open teams on a
Yeah.
good year, but most of
Okay.
the time we have 4 open teams playing. Yeah, we are a relatively small school. We've only got about 350 boys in the senior school, of which
Wow.
about 200 play rugby.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
so we try not to use that as an excuse because we want to compete with the bigger schools who have 1,000 plus boys. But yeah, good year, 5 teams in the senior school, especially for our derby against St Andrews College. But most of the time, we'll have 4 open teams.
Okay. All right. Adna?
You've just now mentioned St Andrews College, so I presume they're one of your biggest competitors. Which other schools do you like to play most?
Yeah, so we geographically quite in an interesting position because we're in the Eastern Cape, but we're between the sort of Eastern Province and the border schools. So within Grahamstown, we get to compete against St Andrews College and Kingswood College. And then we get to play some of the top border schools, such as Queen's College, Selborne College, Dale College.
Mhm.
And then in the Eastern Province side, we get to play schools like Marlow Agricultural School or Marlow Landbou,
Mhm.
as well as Grey Port Elizabeth,
Okay.
and Pearson High School and Framesby. Yeah, so a bit of a mixed bag between the Eastern Province and border schools, which is for us makes it quite nice and interesting.
Yeah. And from a coaching perspective, what kind of style do you want the boys to play?
Typically, I think the Eastern Cape has been known for having quite a bit of flair. So we
Okay.
don't necessarily always have the biggest players in terms of stature, but we've got pretty good athletes.
Mhm.
We also pride ourselves on having pretty good skills.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, for the most part, we like to move the ball around, but we also know you can only do that a certain amount. You've still got to be pretty good at that level in terms of having good structures in place, and picking and choosing the right moment where you want to sort of have a crack. So yeah, we pride ourselves on trying to have a good set piece and competing with the best there. And if we feel like we can hold the opposition in those departments, then there's a good chance that we can probably run them off their feet with our skills, a bit of flair, and our athletes.
Okay. All
Brilliant.
right.
And it usually the crowd tends to enjoy that as well. So
Mm.
Absolutely.
it does sometimes get them on your side.
Right, Steve.
Yes. To be invited to the Easter festivals and any kind of mainstream festival, how important is it for your school to get recognized and to be invited to these kinds of festival? What does it mean for the school?
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. I think for us, it's massively important. And I'd say
Yeah.
from the school as a whole, obviously quite nice to touch base, for example, with old boys in Johannesburg, go up there and
Yes.
share what we're doing back at the school, just remind them about where they sort of grew up and how the school is continually trying to get better, etc. And
Mhm.
then also
Brilliant.
huge exposure for individuals.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
one of
yes.
those areas we kind of know where the school game has gone. And there are scouts that are out there probably watching more games there than they are necessarily in the Eastern Cape. It also gives us an opportunity. I think sometimes in the Eastern Cape, schools don't back themselves against bigger schools from outside the province, but it gives
Yeah.
us an opportunity to take on those schools and make our boys realize, as the Eastern Cape, especially in terms of rugby, we're not far behind the best in the country. So we're keen to have
Yes.
a crack at those schools and take them on. As I said, give our school exposure, but also give the individuals exposure that could possibly be snapped up by a varsity play Young Guns Varsity Cup in
Absolutely.
the future, or even one of the unions.
Mm.
Yeah, so huge exposure and a massive opportunity for the learners at the school.
Right. Adno?
I would just like to know if you could possibly tell us which matches your school has played that actually stands out in your memory.
Yeah.
Maybe those matches where you never expected to win, but some boy did something and in the end you won.
Yeah, that be sort of in the last 2, 3 years.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah. So I think a big one for us was actually last year at the St. John's Easter Festival, where we managed to beat Pretoria Boys.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I mentioned the size of schools earlier. Again, not that we want to mention that, but for us, a relatively small school, to take them on at St. John's. And we always felt that if we played well on the day, we would have a good chance to beat them. And luckily, we put together a good performance, and that was a big win for us. I think also last
Wow.
year, we had what was called the Legacy Derby, which is when we choose one of the teams in the Eastern Cape that we play against, and it's an old boys weekend. And we took on Queen's College,
Mhm.
and Queen's had a really good season. They'd beaten St Andrews in town, they'd beaten Grey PE, they'd beaten Selborne College home and away. So up to that point in time, they were probably number 1 or number 2 in the province, and we managed to beat them at the Legacy Derby. So that was a big win. And then going back probably to 2023, we recorded our first win over Grey PE in about 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really special one. They've traditionally probably been the powerhouse in the Eastern Cape.
Mhm.
A lot of other teams have caught up in recent times, but yeah, that was a really big win for the school. And the last one was probably in 2022, beating St Andrews College, our rivals across the road, on Lower Field, their
Brilliant.
home field, in
Brilliant.
a tight contest, but we managed to go up on the day. So yeah, those are just some of the more memorable matches in recent years.
Right. And from a coaching perspective, where are you during the match? Are you like on the halfway line? Are you standing behind the post? Or do you have a coaching box? Where do you usually find yourself?
Yeah, I think it's actually well suited to St. John's Festival because I've always been one to stand behind the poles.
Okay.
Um, so at our home fixtures, obviously you're meant to be off the field in the coach's box. Now and then we do creep on towards the try line until we get reminded that you have to move back again. But
Right.
yeah, so that actually suits us at St. John's. We're generally situated behind the poles.
Okay.
And I'm pretty comfortable in that position.
Okay.
I enjoy it there. I think there's a nice view of the field. I think if you get towards the halfway line, it's difficult to kind of see what's happening in certain areas. Yeah,
Mhm.
so for me, that's the best view to coach from at schoolboy level, where we don't always have an area that's on
Yeah.
the ground that you can get a full view.
Okay. Right. Steve.
Yeah, this is quite a broad question. We all know there's a huge amount of talent in the Eastern Cape. I mean, the schools, the talent in the school speaks for itself. Unfortunately, Eastern Cape rugby's been struggling in the B section, as we all know. What would you say can be done from school perspective and a community to keep the talent inside Eastern Cape?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it's something that's not really unknown at the moment, is that we're losing a lot of talent to other unions. It probably
Yeah,
used to happen after school, but it's now creeping younger and younger. Boys from the age of 13 already are tending to get bursaries to other schools and move off to other provinces. So I think
sure.
first and foremost, we as schools have to ensure that we're running really good rugby programs that are competing
Yes.
with those schools. So we can't expect a learner to stay if he's going to be getting better level of coaching, better level of strength and conditioning training, better access to nutrition, better academics, all of that. So as schools, we've got to look internally first and make sure that we are offering all of that. Our coaching structures are really good. If a learner needs to be, he can be in the boarding house on a nutritional plan. He's getting good strength and conditioning coaching. Um, After that, it's sometimes difficult to control, but I
Yeah.
have been involved with the union now the last 2 years, and there's a real big push from sort of young coaches in our area where we realized that some of the schools are running good programs, but we also have to keep improving as a union. We
Yeah.
need the EP at Craven Week, at Grand Como, at Academy Week, competing with the top. So to put in perspective, EP Craven Week in 2023 went unbeaten at Craven Week. They didn't play in the final. So they kind of ranked second or third in the end. They managed to beat the Sharks on the last day. So I still think there's talent here.
Yes.
As a union, we obviously need support from the board and that level. You can't always control that, but we still feel if we can sort out our schools and then we get good coaches in the mix for the provincial level, it's still a really good breeding ground for talent. And the idea is that obviously Alistair Coetzee has come back. He's only about a year and a half back in the job, but he's trying to sort out the senior structures, which is a massive job. I don't think he's taken it on in terms of the monetary that is available there. He really wants to make a difference in Eastern Province rugby. So if we can start sorting that out, then hopefully there is a pathway for players to go into the senior structures. The senior structures can grow and get better. Along with that, we need NMMU University. We need them to try get back into Varsity Cup rather than the Shield. So I know their guys working really hard on the ground there. So I think it's going to take a team effort from everyone in the union. It's one that's we're not economically strong in this area. And it's probably going to take some special people on the ground that want to turn it around. But the talent is here. And at the moment, I always say to you guys, until we turn that around, we can't be too upset, especially a learner after school leaving to other unions. Of course, he is going to leave if the opportunity is there. But
absolutely.
In terms of our schools, let's try and make sure that we're really pushing the boundaries, running good rugby programs to at least keep them here for school. And hopefully the structures then can get better and we can keep them on a bit longer.
Yes.
If I look at the background, I see a white screen and there's written geography 12 May. So I think it's a task or it's an exam or something, test. So I'd be worried if I was in your class. Anyway.
Well noticed.
I just see 12 May. So, you like me. I'm like me. I'm also studying still at my age, and I'm always pushed for, hey, that is a deadline. Okay. So, but I want to ask you in that regard, how do you teach your players? Do you physically go onto that blackboard and do some drawings and tell them, listen, you must move this side, you should go that side, this is the move that you should make, and then also, or do you take them into physically to the pitch, and if they play, do they also tell you, no, sir, we're struggling with this, and you would give feedback, or maybe they suggest things? What is are you like a participatory type of person, or would you just more or less tell them what the main things is that you should do?
No, I think definitely more in terms of participation. So not really that old school rugby coach in South Africa that's very dictatorship. I think we've passed that. I don't think it would go down too well with some of the learners these days. I think there is a time and place for that still, but for the most part, it's giving a lot of suggestions, ideas. Where the level of the game has gone now, we do quite a lot of analysis. So we even, for example, video record quite a few practices. So you try and show them a video clip from a practice. And before giving them the information, you'd ask what they see, what do they think they did well, where could they have improved. Once they give you that feedback, you'll obviously give your ideas and hopefully reach a sort of mutual agreement on what should have been obtained. But and then when we go on the field, as I said earlier, we play with quite a bit of flair. So you can't contain the learners and the players too much. We have our structures and we have a guideline in terms of what we want to achieve. But a lot of the decision making must come from them. And again, thereafter, when you do reviews of that game, I think if you're going to give them quite a bit of leniency in terms of making decisions, when they come back, if they made the wrong decisions, it's more sort of going through that process of questions. Why was that decision made? Do you still believe it was the right decision? What could we have done differently? Instead of just giving them the information and telling them what needs to be done. It's definitely coming from. And I think these learners, they've got access to a lot of tools themselves. So they're watching games themselves, they're analyzing it, they're cutting clips. So they sometimes can possibly even teach you as the coach something or
Yes,
something you didn't see. They might find that information for you.
right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And um, so you teach some of the boys, right? So now in the classroom, you need to be quite strict and things like this. But once you get onto the field, do you give them a little bit more leniency and they probably know, all right, we are on the rugby field. This is not the classroom, and maybe they take some chances as well. How do you transfer that from the classroom onto the field?
Yeah, I think the best thing with teaching a learner in the class and then on the field, you get to know him really well. If
Right.
you're spending 45 minutes, sometimes an hour with the learner during the day, and obviously you're teaching him, but during that time, you're seeing his academic ability, you're seing his personality in the classroom. It's
Mm,
definitely beneficial to get that
Mm.
insight other than just knowing him on the rugby field.
right.
And for me, I think I probably treat the learners in a similar way. My classroom is not the most strict of places. I think as long as the work's getting done, the learners are allowed to chat now and then as long as it's in moderation. And I would probably say that reflects my coaching style as well.
Okay.
We've
Brilliant.
got good boundaries as a school. Discipline's a big thing, and that helps us. The learners generally know they have to stay within that. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, when they do cross that line, whether it's in the classroom, and often we discipline guys in terms of rugby from the classroom. So if a learner
Mm.
has
True.
had discipline issues at school, we remove them from the squad, or for example, we'll ban them for a game. So we have to work together. We can't have different rules up here at school as for the rugby players.
Mm.
Those learners need to understand they might be talented on the field and they're playing rugby at a high level, hopefully, but they're still
Yeah.
school learners and schoolboys, and they've got to adhere to those rules. And I
Right.
think that's where we're lucky in South Africa that a lot of schools are still following that sort of strict discipline approach.
Yes.
And the sport at the end of the day should be a reward. So
Yes.
if they are well behaved at school and on the field, then they can play and participate and enjoy the game. But as soon as they don't, then unfortunately there have to be some consequences.
Right. Right. Steve?
One last question for me. When players get identified, special talent gets identified, let's say a player gets selected now for Crown Week, or you identify a certain talent that you know can make it bigger on the biggest platform, on the biggest stage. What is your approach concerning mentorship, or is there special programs in place in the school? How do you approach those kind of individuals from a mentorship perspective?
So we've had a big push from the school. If we've identified learners like that, we've tried to
Yeah.
get them into the boarding house as soon as possible.
Okay.
And it's dependent on the environment at home, how far they stay from the school,
Mhm.
what type of access they have to nutrition, their academic ability. So
Yeah.
we've used the boarding house and it's been brilliant in that regard. So we've got a couple of those schoolmasters who are kind of young teachers yet. They don't have their own families. They also live in the boarding house
Mhm.
and they mentor a lot of those learners, yeah, as much as possible, just in terms of
Brilliant.
how they can maintain a good academic standard while pushing the level with sport.
Yes.
So how often they should be doing strength and conditioning training. Also, their social life decisions that should be getting made. Yeah, and that's helped us quite a lot. So we've got that sort of from the rugby perspective, and then the school has a mentorship program as well, where each learner
Brilliant.
is part of a mentor group between about 15 and 18 learners,
Mhm.
and that teacher is directly responsible for them talking to parents, sorry, as well as dealing with teachers having issues with those learners, etc. Yeah, but I think it's worked very well. We've got three learners who last year's under 17s played at the Craven Week and then were part of the EPD structures.
Okay.
And
Brilliant.
of those three learners, we've got two of them in the boarding house. And
Okay.
they have
Awesome.
been now for about 2, 3 years. And that's proved, yeah, like it's worked. I feel it's worked really
Absolutely.
well. Yeah. So we'll probably
Absolutely.
continue with something like that.
Right.
Great stuff.
Arnav?
I just would like to know if you at this stage have identified some of your players who you might think will possibly play in a provincial team or maybe even a Springbok team. And yes, if you're aware of students in the past, students who are already playing in those positions.
Yeah, so probably a proud recent one for us is Bato Flekani, who played at the SA Under-20 World Cup last year, was part of that winning team, and is currently playing in the URC for the Lions. So that's of recent
Brilliant.
note. We've got a couple of learners now who've come into the varsity cup and shield structures, which is really good and nice examples to use for our current players that if they use the opportunity, there will be opportunities after school as well. And then I made mention of those three boys. They played Craven Week last year as under 17. So they back this year. The
Okay.
one learner, Aaron Nelson, he already played for South Africa under 18A last year.
Oh, wow.
And then
Brilliant.
the other two learners, Luke Doyle and Lucretia Machau, have been part of the EPD setup for the last 2 years. And
Wow.
then also Locke Akon Tonjeni represented the EP Academy Week last year. So he'll be hoping to make the Craven Week this year. And then I think there are probably another one or two learners with the outside chance that if they start the season really well, they could be in the mix of a provincial level.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
And do you want to coach at Craven Week level or go up further in the structures?
Yeah, so I coached the EP Academy Week last year, under
Right.
18, and
Uh-huh.
I'm hoping to be involved this year with the Craven Week team.
Okay.
I think there's a possibility that I might be involved as an assistant coach.
Okay.
They just formally have to kind of name and sign those off, but we have started HP selection. So we have had selections and we've had testing with players.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so hopefully be in the mix there. Looking forward to it. It's also being hosted down here in Port Elizabeth.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's exciting.
okay. Right. Steve?
From my side, with the St. John's Festival, we're going to be there. So I would like to wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Anna, anything from your side?
I would just like to say I hope you're schooled as well and that you actually enjoy the matches this year.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Yeah. And also from my side, thank you very much for your quick response last week. That was a very big surprise. And thank you for taking the time. As we said, we'll be at the St. John's Festival. We'll come and look you up and just have a chat with you. And what we will do, we will post this onto our YouTube channel. And I think around April, we will put this into the magazine as well. We've got a coach's corner, and then we put all of this in, and then we will feature your school as well.
Awesome, gents. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I do always or often joke about the Eastern Cape. Everyone sees us slow and far behind, but there you saw on Friday, we can sometimes be up to
Absolutely.
speed. And we do love it down here, but it is nice to visit you guys up north over the April Easter weekend. We'll
Yes.
see you.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, it's usually still very hot around April. So, and I know also because you come up here, so it's a little bit different. So, and yeah, so you must come and enjoy the Easter festival, and we will definitely come and look you up.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much,
much for your
gents.
time. All right.
Enjoy the rest of the
Thank
day.
you. All
Cheers.
right. Bye.
Thanks. Hey, bye bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Bye.